Hello there lads and ladies, welcome back finally to another manga review. Today, as you can see from the title, I am doing one of my favourite horror genre characters, and probably the most tragic one out of all of them really. Well, there are a couple. And if you're hearing scratching noises, that's my sister's dog. We're keeping him over here for a while because he's just sat up on the seat over there, bless him. Basically, my sister's other female dog has gone into season, so we're just keeping him here with us so he doesn't cause any baby finascos with that dog. So, yeah, we've got Brucey here with us today, bless him. So, yes, today we are going to be covering Sadako. And this one is called Sadako at the End of the World. This is basically a novelization, well, at least a manga version of the cult classic 1995 novel of The Ring. Although it's had many variations over the years, and I think the most recent one was back in 2019, so roughly around about 2 years ago or so. And I'd like to watch that film because I think it goes a little bit more into Sadako's life, basically. I mean, I've seen the first 3 Ring films, the originals. I try not to delve too much into the American one because it's kind of adding its own little spin onto it with a different named character and Samara. Well, obviously they can't use Sadako because copyright and all that stuff, unfortunately. And an interesting little fact with Sadako, there's a section in the first film where the father of Yuichi gets killed, unfortunately. If you haven't seen the film, you know, spoilers. I mean, it's been like well over 30 years. I feel like if you haven't watched it now, I feel like you should definitely go watch it. It's a fantastic film, really. Although I feel like the second and third film are probably better than the original, just because you don't see much of Sadako in the first film, whereas the third film was really upsetting for me to watch, really, because it kind of tells you a little bit more of Sadako's backstory as a stage actress, and she falls in love with this young boy, and unfortunately it doesn't pan out the way she does, really. I'm not going to spoil the film for you, but it's really upsetting and tragic how it leads to her getting trapped down the well, basically. So I'm going to carry on and talk about this novel because not only that, I've got a tattoo of Sadako, oddly enough, done recently. Also, I've got the blight on me as well from DVD. What I want to do, if you can see it, hold on, let me stand up for you. Ooh. There she is. There's Sadako. And there is the blight. There's Talbot there. They're in their little chibi forms, basically. I've basically got her coming out of the telly. There's a little transportation thing underneath there to add to the spectral side of things. The hair's more grey than black, and over here it's still healing a little bit. And with Blight, I've added a little bit of orangeness to his mouth and eyes. And he's got like a little syringe, so it's like he's offering it to Sadako to like join the DVD cast. What I want to do is try and get some of the other killers that I play on there, like I might want to get Freddy on there. I kind of want to get the Demogorgon because I think I've got him to Prestige 3. And some of the others, basically. I might even probably get the nurse on there, I'm not so sure yet. But get them all in chibi form, you know. And it also like adds as a filler for my arms, basically, because I've got an awful lot of places on my arms that aren't filled in. So like maybe here I could have like Freddy, and down here I could have the nurse, and maybe here I can have Michael or something. I don't know. It'll add to it, basically. And I've got a nice little story time to go with that one. I'll talk about that some other time, but yeah, that's my new tattoo of Sadako and the Blight, basically. So with this manga, we meet 2 young girls called Ai and Hai. I'm going to say Hai because here just doesn't sound like normal to me, really, because I feel like I mean, her name is, I think it's spelled H-I, so it should be Hie, if I'm correct. Let me see. Yeah, it's 2 I's, so it's Hie. No, I'll call it Hie, it's alright. Hie is the little one, so if you want to look again, this is Ai-san, or Ai-Chan, and this is Hie-Chan. Now, I believe they're more than likely sisters, but it's not really claimed in a certain sense. I think they're sisters. Anyway, they see Sadako's videotape in this small little treehouse, and of course this is a apocalyptic world where it's believed that not many people are left alive on this world. And that's what I like with Sadako later on in the book, basically. She has that struggle with herself of thinking, if I curse these two kids and they both die and they end up being the last alive, then doesn't my curse become like less like of a real thing? And then does that mean that I become less real, basically? Because if you didn't watch like the original Ring series, you'll realize that Sadako is actually two people. While the original Sadako was this very shy, reclusive young lady, there was another part of her which was a twin, basically. And the father, I believed, used supplements and suppressants to try and keep Sadako, like the evil side of her, the cursed side of her, repressed in a certain sense. So if you notice why in the third film she's an awful lot smaller than the actual Sadako, it's because of that, basically. They don't try to tell you too much about why this is a thing, really. It's only until like the ending when they finally release that, you know, oh, she's basically psychic as her mother was. But the psychic side of her has a couple of screw looses, basically. I don't know why they decided to go the route of having two Sadakos, one being good and one being completely cursed. But I kind of like that. It kind of adds more human to the character, which is why this makes sense, really, within this novelization. An awful lot of people would think, oh, well, why is Sadako being friendly to these two children? She should just be cursing them and then going on a merry way back to the videotape. Well, that's not the case. Because Sadako basically joined up with the real Sadako at the end of the third film, that makes sense why she would go to and fro from her normal self to her cursed self, basically. You know, the one with the hair all over the face, whilst the other one you can actually see her face. And I believe the actress who played Sadako was it's in the back of this book here. Hang on a second. Because I'm pretty sure this lady was present during one of the premieres or something like that. Yeah, Sadako was played in 1998. She was played by a stage actress named Rie Ino. So I was right about the last name. But her name was Rie Ino. Anyway, we carry on with the story. Apparently she communicates using this little iPad thing, basically, which is surprising because it has no battery in this time. I think it's either an iPad or it's just one of those little bits of board that you can just write on with a pen, but you don't see it with a pen, so I'm pretty sure this is just an iPad, basically, which makes completely no sense. But then again, she's a spirit, she can handle videotape, curse and all that, so it just comes naturally to her. You know, she's telekinetic powers, I think, can help with that. It kind of like bypasses the whole point of like, oh, electricity, that doesn't need to be a thing. Although I feel like that would work oppositely, because I feel like she would rather like interrupt things, and she would act like an EMP more than like a source of electrical power source, because telekinesis is just about moving things with your mind and adding pressure and all that to certain individuals, like internal organs and all that, because that's what happened with one guy who questioned Sadako's mother when it came to her seer powers. Basically, she could like see into the future, and he ended up having a heart attack, and that kind of explains like why she more than likely put pressure on his heart and killed him. So I don't know what that has to do with her being able to use the iPad like without any batteries or anything like that. It kind of makes no sense, especially at the end of the world where there's no electricity left, basically, you know. But anyway, we go from their one little tree house, and they basically, hii-Chan and hii-Chan basically decide to help her, like try and find new friends and all that. They're trying to be as kind as they can be, really. Sadako is kind of she can't talk in this, obviously, but the fact that she's acting quite normal without talking, it's kind of like they're dabbling into that like humane side of her without actually having her speak in a certain sense, which I quite like. I kind of like that basically. They go and meet this beautician who has not had a customer in God knows how long, and they meet by Sadako pretending to be like another Onryo, which uses her hair. I cannot remember the name of the Onryo, unfortunately, but that one actually has like the ability to use her hair to like wrap around people and do all sorts of nastily things towards them, which kind of makes no sense because Sadako never used her hair for anything like that. It was just meant to be like a thing to disguise her face basically until she showed her eye to like kill people. So I guess that was just there for like a little nod towards like Japanese mythology when it came to certain people. Anyway, she basically does the opportunity to help Sadako and the young girls, give them like fresh new haircuts. It's given her an opportunity to become a beautician again, basically, which is quite lovely because at the end, when they go off to the next town over to try and find new people, Sadako comes back and like her hair gently like wraps around her and caresses her, and I quite like that bit because it kind of like, even though the end is coming for this beautician, she feels thankful towards Sadako for at least giving her an opportunity to become like herself again within that role of the job of a beautician, basically, and I love that. And it isn't like shown her killing them basically, but it's alluded to it basically. And then we come to a grandmother who unfortunately is no longer in contact with her daughter. It's more than likely possible that the daughter has more than likely died, or like this virus or something. We're not even sure what caused the apocalypse. We're just assuming that the world has ended, basically, in one way, shape, or form or another, basically. Who knows? Maybe Sadako herself was the reason for like killing everyone on the planet, which explains why she's here in this world. More than likely, her curse managed to affect everyone, and we're only seeing a small snippet of her actually taking out the world with these two children, basically. We're just seeing this small little snippet through these two children's eyes, basically. Anyway, she comes back to see the grandmother after she's been kind enough to like play a little bit of house like performance arts and all that with like the play of Hansel and Gretel. And the performance bit is very important because in the third film, as I've explained, young Sadako was a stage performer. And I believe, I cannot remember the name of the play that they did, unfortunately, but it was very similar to certain like Shakespeare classics, and she wore a white dress which is similar to what she's wearing now. I mean, it is the white dress basically, it's just a little bit more it had more frills on it basically within the film itself. So that was like a nice little snippet to add in there, like of her past as a performer, like a stage performer. And then it later on, like after we see her like go back to the grandmother, she's like thankful that she can now basically leave this world and hopefully see her child and family in another realm, basically. And it kind of like has this lovely zoom out pan of like the house, and then it like on the next page, let me show you on the next page, there's like this little splatter of white paint, which I guess is meant to be a symbol of like death, basically, her taking out her victims, unfortunately. And then they come to another well, which is not unfortunately Sadako's well. It's another well, which I believe is actually based on a real story, oddly enough. Let me recite the story of this Okiku. I believe her name was Okiku. It has something to do with plates, like she was a plate maker or something. I heard this story when I was quite young, but I could not remember the name of it. Yeah, it's called The Ghost of the Plate Manor. Okiku's story is actually based on the real ghost story called the Dish Mansion of Banshu, the Banshu Sarayashiki. Here's how the story goes. A long time ago, a woman named Okiku worked at the manor as a servant. Her main job was to look after 10 very expensive plates for the lord of the manor. However, a samurai named Aoyama wanted Akiku to become his mistress, and so he constructed a devious plot. One day he hid one of the plates, then when Akiku counted the plates, she was one short. He tried to blackmail her by promising her he wouldn't inform the lord of the manor that she lost the plate if she became his mistress. Accounts vary over whether Aoyama murdered Akiku and threw her into the well, or whether she cast herself into the well in despair. After her demise, she could be found wandering the manor, counting plates and unable to find the last one. Eventually, an exorcist was called. He managed to exorcise her spirit by shouting 10. Or, what is it? Ishini-san Shiko, Ju. Or just Ju. Just shouting Ju. Because that was the Japanese word for 10, basically. When she finished counting the first 9 plates, since the last plate had been found, her spirit could finally rest in peace, which they added into the story. Basically, the 2 girls met her, they realised that she was transparent, and they decided to help her with the plates. They basically offered her like the 1 plate from their own collection, basically, and that is what helped her become like at peace with herself. So she then like went up into the nothingness of the world, basically. Before they left, though, they left Ai-san, the eldest one, with this warning that if you continue to hang around this Sadako lass, you will end up meeting death. Ai-Chan stews over it for a while, and she remembers it while sleeping. And there's this creepy section where Sadako's sleeping face up, and then as Ai turns over to sleep, you see Sadako just like turn towards her with her hair just like creeping ever closer to her, basically, showing that death is only like an inch away from you, basically. I like that, a nice little bit of creepiness to add to it, really. And then, if I'm correct, it ends with Ai basically asking Sadako to go out with a walk with them after they reach their well finally, and then release the well's like top to Sadako's well, basically. They believe it's going to like alleviate something for her. Like, I believe it's just them trying to be kind. Don't mind the dog growling, he's just growling at nothingness. Anyway, they release the well. Well, they take the top of the well, basically. I ask Sadako to go with a walk with her for a bit. I let slip that, you know, she knows like what is written on the slate next to Sadako's well, basically. They know, she knows what Sadako wants, basically, at the end of the day, but she feels like if it's to help her, then she'll do it, because, you know, Sadako kind of gave her like a fun day or a fun week, basically, to live as they have been, basically, because being on their own, it's never been fun, basically, especially in the apocalypse. So Sadako basically filled something in their life that they needed, basically. Where this leads here, I don't really know. That's kind of up in the air, basically. It kind of ends with Sadako basically writing on the tablet that, you know, I can have you become a part of my videotape. So then that way we're together forever in a certain sense, basically. Because if you've seen the videotape, it's kind of, it shows the little kanji symbol for Sada within the eye of Sadako. And there are people like crawling, there's a image of a towel man, basically. So I would have liked to have seen like a panel with Ai and Hie within that, you know, like they show the videotape like on pages and you can actually see them like standing there with Sadako or something like that. That would have been nice. But it didn't end like that, surprisingly. It kind of ended up in the air with Sadako like coming back to the cave, not realizing that Hie is still alive, and she's realized that, oh, I'm still here, basically. What is going on? Because obviously Ai-Chan has died. It's been a week and Ai-Chan has died, unfortunately. And then it like ends with Sadako like looking towards like the viewer reading the thing, and she kind of goes, "Oh, you there?" Like she jumps out at you at the screen, at the page. Actually, where is it? Actually, hang on, let me try and find yeah, so it kind of ends like with them at the well. There's her in the bottom of the well looking up at the well top, and I believe that's kind of a small snippet into the actual video itself. Is it? Oh no! My apologies, Hiei is not alive. See, because I saw this image, that's hii-Chan, she's unfortunately passed away. That's hii-Chan. Now, the ear here kind of looks like an eye to me, so when I saw it like that, I thought, oh, like, she's wide awake. But no, they're both unfortunately dead, so... And it kind of has like this question mark above her head. She's like, oh, still not gone, basically. And that's where she then realizes, oh, someone's still alive. There you are. She like comes at you through the book. So it's kind of a bittersweet ending, really. You know, like, of course the curse did get them at the end of the day, because with the curse, the way to alleviate it was to copy the tape onto another videotape, and then you would then show someone else that tape, and then the curse would be lifted from you onto that person. It was kind of like what they did with this one film. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like it based itself on like STDs or something like that. How you could like there was like this old woman that would follow you, continuously follow you, like walking pace. No matter where you go in the world, she will follow you. And the only way to get rid of this curse was to sleep with someone. And then that woman would then go after them until she either found them and killed them, or until they slept with someone else and passed it on. So it's kind of like a play on like how STDs spread like wildfire, basically, really. It's similar with Sadako, basically, how with the videotape, once you copy the videotape and then have someone else watch it, then that's what happens. I don't know if it would then fall back on you when that person's dead. I don't think that's the case, really, because I feel like it has to be from someone who's watched it, compared to an STD where, you know, if you slept with someone, you still have it, basically. It doesn't matter, you've just spread it to someone else and they spread it to you, basically. Anyway, that is the ending of Sadako at the end of the world. There's actually a lovely little section at the back here where it actually quizzes you on your ring knowledge. And I think I know up to roughly about... Well, when it started with me, it was the 1998 film that was directed by Hido Nakata. And I believe I only like watched the second and third film. I didn't manage to watch any of the Spiral films though, because those look quite interesting. And I want to see the 2019 Sadako film. I didn't watch the Sadako versus the Kayako film because that was the one with the lady in the red dress. Because I felt like those, you know, cash grab type of deals, you know, like, oh, they put these big names with one another and they fight. Which is kind of like with the whole Freddy versus Jason thing. Like, I watched it, I enjoyed it, but it was kind of like, you know, it was only good like when they fought each other, which was like once or twice out of the whole film, rather than like watching these two, well, these few like moron teens trying to figure out how to kill them, basically. You know, like, good job to the actors for trying their best, but, you know, we're here to see Jason and Freddy, basically. It was the same with Sadako and Kayako. They didn't really, like, fight until, like, the end, because I only saw, like, snippets of it, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't watch the entire film just for, like, 5 minutes of combat between those two, really. But, yeah, it, like, goes all the way down from, like, 1991, from the Ring novel that was published by Koji Suzuki, who I believe actually, they supervised over this. It's actually on the page here next to Koma Natsumi, who wrote this. There it is, the supervision of Koji Suzuki. So it was nice to actually have the original novelists here to cover their own work, basically. It's nice to see that. Unlike what happened with like Wes Craven and Scream 3, because Scream 3 I think was done ahead of Wes Craven's like go ahead, basically. I feel like they did that without his say so, really. And thankfully it wasn't as successful as the second and first one, really, because I feel like I enjoy the third Scream film, but I feel like you can't beat the original, really. You can never beat the original. And Wes Craven kind of like took it up a notch when it came to like the new killer of Scream, or Ghostface basically, because it was the turn of a new century in the 90s, and it was like, oh, technology is a new thing. They're kind of like doing the same thing like what they did with Sadako, like how they use the technology of a TV, even though the VHS is quite like a thing of the past compared to like what a DVD or a Blu-ray is now. Basically, the VHS was like the be-all and end-all original when it came to technology, which is where it begins and ends really with the Scream and the Ring series basically. So with that, that has been Sadako at the End of the World. A little bit of a bitter ending, unfortunately, but I find it actually quite bittersweet nonetheless, really. There is a second novel that I want to cover with Sadako, but it's based on another, I think it might be from the same person. I think it might be Kominazumi or it might be someone else. I'm not so sure. I'm going to have to check. It's basically where Sadako meets this little girl called Sada, or Sadako-chan, or just Sadako-chan and Sadako-san is what it's called, I believe. So I'll be covering that hopefully not next week, but the week after, depending, basically. I might do it next week, just so I can get both of them done out of the way, basically. Because these two were the only, like, Sadako manga, like, books that I could find. I might cover the novels when I get the opportunity, because they are very good reads from what I hear. If they're anything like the movie, they're twice as better within the books, basically. So, with that, lads and ladies, I thank you ever so much for joining me on another little review of one of my favourite horror characters. Did you like it? Please let me know. If you want, I can do other reviews of horror characters, basically, within their books and films. I would like to do film reviews on horrors, because they are the most, like, memorable and sometimes cheesy of the classics, like kind of like what Dead Meat does, really, with their things. But I kind of want to do it more from like an explanatory like thing of where they started and where they ended, basically. Kind of like how Freddy, even though like Robert Englund was like the be-all and end-all brilliant actor for Freddy, there was another actor who I believe did the Nightmare remake, and that was very good. Like, for a remake, it was a very good, like, rehashed version of it, basically. I mean, it wasn't really rehashed. They added some more disturbing factors about him, and even though it was up in the air that he might have done some horrible things to the children, it was never spoken about in the original Robert Englund version, because we just knew, basically. But in this, they actually throw it in your face that he's a human piece of shit, basically. And I like that. I like that they actually let you, like, remind you that this is a murderer. You know, this is a person that's done horrible things, basically. Whereas we try not to avoid that, like, in movies, to get some sort of entertainment and shock value out of it. Like, with that one, they pulled no punches really with it, which was what I liked really about it, even though it was just a remake. Well, I'd not say just a remake, but you know what I mean. It was like a reimagining of him, basically. So, with that, sorry for the long outro again, lads and ladies. Thank you ever so much for watching this with me. I hope you all enjoyed, and I shall see you all on whatever I do next around here. Take care, my friends.